Okay, so tonight's lesson previews the topic of laws of logic. So we're going to focus on what we call deductive reasoning here, which is the process of reasoning logically and drawing a conclusion from given facts and statements. There are three types of deductive reasoning that we're going to cover. The first is what's known as the law of detachment. So what this means is if we're given a conditional statement and we're given a second statement that confirms the premise, also known as the hypothesis, or the first part of the statement is true, then we conclude that that the conclusion will also be true. So what I mean by that is if we have this example, if a student gets an A on a final exam, then the student will pass the course. And we know that Abby got an A on her history final exam, then we can conclude, therefore, that Abby will pass the history course. Symbolically, what this looks like is if we have a conditional statement, if P then Q, and we know that the first part, the premise or the hypothesis is true, we can conclude, therefore, the three dots mean therefore, we can make a conclusion that the second part is also true. So if the P part is true, then the Q part is true. So that is how the law of detachment works. Okay, we'll do more examples in class. We have a second type of deductive reasoning called the law of contrapositive, which is sort of the exact opposite of the law of detachment. If we're given a conditional statement, same as the top, but in this case, the conclusion or the second part of the statement is false, then we can conclude that the hypothesis or the first part of the statement is false. So it starts out the same, but then we say Q is not true, or in other words, Q is false. So we can conclude, therefore, that the premise or the hypothesis is also false or not true. So we can take a look at this example here. If you're an engineer, then you use mathematics on the job. John does not use mathematics on the job, meaning the second part of the statement is false. So therefore, we can conclude that John is not an engineer, meaning the first part of the statement is also not true. And again, we'll look at that more in class. And then we have a third and final type of deductive reasoning, and that's called the law of syllogism, which allows you to draw a conclusion from two conditional statements in which the conclusion of the first statement is the hypothesis of the second statement. So if you remember back to our symbolic form notes, we said that logical statements could be represented using the letters P and Q, but we also had R and we said dot, dot, dot. So if we have more statements than just what is given in one conditional statement, we use the following letters. So if P then Q, and if Q then R, then we can sort of cut out this middleman and go directly from then if P then R. So this type of reasoning will always have two conditional statements. If a figure is a square, then the figure is a rectangle. If a figure is a rectangle, so it has to match, then the figure has four sides. So therefore, we can cut out this middle piece and say if a figure is a square, then the figure has four sides. And that's the law of syllogism. So we'll again talk more about that in class, but come with any questions, and I'll see you guys then.